My name is Jenny Paxson, and I'm going to present about Hot Summer Reads right now. I'm the Reader's Discovery Librarian at the Webster Public Library, and I help readers find the book that's just right for them. So this, as of July 13th, is what our high holds were in the Webster Public Library. As you can see, John Grisham is at the top, which is no surprise. He generally pulls in about 30 to 40 holds per book with every single book that he publishes. Other consistent authors are Hildebrand, Baldacci, Patterson. So these are all not shocking to see at the top of our high holds lists. So these are books you probably have already heard of that were published and that you may even be on a high hold list for. These are not the books that I'm talking about today. They're books that you may have missed while we've been closed. So here are some of those treasures. This first book I'm going to talk about, The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, was published, I believe, in 2019. By Stuart Turton. It is a mystery, kind of like an Agatha Christie, with a science fiction kind of twist to it. The main character starts out in the book as a amnesiac. He's in the middle of a forest. He has no idea how he got there, and he thinks he sees a woman getting murdered. And so he runs to the nearest house only to find out that he is a guest at a huge party that's happening for Evelyn Hardcastle. And he has to piece together what happened, why he lost his memory. And it is stunning what the turn of events that happen are. I'm not going to give anything away because each chapter gives something new. And this guy has to piece together this, this murder of possibly Evelyn Hardcastle. So I highly recommend it. It's one of my favorite books I've read recently. And you should read it too if you like mysteries. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady, Hendrix. This book is kind of like horror and comedy in one. The main characters are a group of women who join together to start their own book club, and they want to solve true crimes. So they read true crime books and they think they can solve them. So when kids start disappearing in the neighborhood, the housewives all think that they can solve the crime, and they think it's some creepy neighbor that they have who may or may not turn out to be a real life monster. If you like horror and comedy mixed together, this might be a good book for you to try. The Jetsetters is the next book by Amanda Ira Ward. She has written quite a few books. This one here is Reese's book club. I believe it was picked for February. And we started to get requests for it back then, but then as you can guess, when we closed, I'm sure many people forgot about it. The Jetsetters is about a woman who, a 71-year-old woman, I believe, who wins a trip on a cruise boat, and she decides that she's going to take her 2 children with her to kind of reconnect. And she thinks she knows them, so she thinks they're both leading very successful, happy lives with the kids and husband, and have mounds of money and work these wonderful jobs. And she doesn't realize that they've not really been truthful with her about their lives. So it's kind of like one of those books that's like a family saga book, but it kind of has, not a saga, but a family story, dramatic, but like everybody has problems kind of book. It kind of gave me a feel for like A Man Called Ove, but it may not be exactly like that. But it sounded like a really great read. I've read other Amanda Ira Ward's books and have really enjoyed them. This next book, The Girl with the Louding Voice by Abby Dare, came out early this year in January. And we had quite a few holds on it, probably because it's a read with Jenna back then. But it's not gotten as many holds recently. and I think it kind of slipped between the cracks. The main character lives in Nigeria, and she really wants to get an education. She's 14 years old, and her father decides that he's going to sell her into marriage, and this is not what she wants. So she runs away from home and goes to the big city and becomes a maid in a house, a very rich people house. And she doesn't know how she got the job, but it's kind of a mystery why they needed a new maid in such a successful house and that she got a job so quickly. And so it's kind of a mystery, but it's also like, you know, she jumps into one fire into another kind of thing. It sounded like a really interesting story, and I love learning about new cultures and people kind of striving for success stories, and also kind of that, you know, a girl from youth growing into adult kind of story. Those are always interesting. So if you like that kind of book, you might like this. The next book that I'm going to tell you about is called These Women by Ivy Pakoda. This book is a mystery, psychological thriller, kind of gritty. It's told from the perspective of 5 different women, and one of the women is a mother of a young woman who has been murdered, and it happened in the 90s, and now in current times there are mirror murders that are happening very similar to the ones that happened back then. And this woman, she wants to help solve the crime, so she goes to the police station to figure out if she can help kind of bring new clues to light. And so one of the other characters is a young police officer, and the two of them kind of work together to solve this crime. It sounds like a thrilling story if you like thrilling stories. Very dark, very gritty, and an interesting new voice. The next book here is To Wake the Giant by Jeff Shara. I don't know if any of you have read any of Jeff Shara's books. They're awesome. Historical fiction. He is like one of the huge researcher. He does so much to find out information about his stories. He's written tons of stuff about Civil War, World War I, World War II. This one is a World War II novel, a novel of the Pearl Harbor. And all the characters in his books are usually real people that were affected by the historical thing that happened at the time. One of the characters in this book was on the Arizona, which is the famous ship that sunk in Pearl Harbor. And another character is the code talker. So it's interesting perspectives. And if you like historical fiction, I think this is one that you should definitely pick up. This book here, The Secrets of Love Story Bridge by Phaedra Patrick. I don't know if you've read any other books by Phaedra Patrick, but one of her big ones was The Curious Charms of Arthur Pepper. And she kind of writes whimsical stories that have like a romantic-y feel to them. This one has an interesting concept to it. The main character is a father, and his wife has recently passed away, and his job is to fix bridges. So the bridge that he's fixing has locks on it. Now, I don't know if you've heard of this before, but people put locks on bridges to show that they have a relationship. I don't know if it's whether they've ended or they're just beginning, or, you know, to show how love has blossomed or whatever. So they put a lock on a bridge as like shows this is going to stay here for a long time. Well, unfortunately, they wreck the bridges. So the main character's job is to pull the locks off of these bridges. And he goes to this one specific one to fix it. And there's a young woman who's putting a lock on a bridge, and she falls off. And so he has to save her, and he jumps in the water and he rescues her. And what the relationship happens after that, of who this woman is, how they intersected together. And it's very It's very charming. So if you like charming, whimsical stories, this might be a good book for you to pick up. Exile Music by Jennifer Steele. I know a lot of people at the Webster Public Library love their World War II fiction, and this is a different perspective that I had never even realized before. But the main character is a young teenager, and her family is living in Vienna during World War II, and their one option for survival is to leave. And so they leave their homeland and go to South America. And of course, when you pick up everything that you have and you leave and go to a different country, it can be completely scary, but you have to do it to save your life kind of thing. And so this girl, she tells her story about how she acclimated to her new culture and survival, and learning to live in a new country. And then also her brother, who has been left behind and is now part of the French Revolution. So what happened to him? Where is he? That story between the two and that interconnection between the two different cultures. And it sounds fascinating. It reminded me of Sarah's Key. It was something I'd never heard of before, what happened in France. And so I love these stories, even though they're sad and tragic. It's definitely bringing a different historical issue from history to light. I love that about how authors do this research and learn new things. So if you want to learn something new about history, Exile Music might be the book for you. This next one is probably not for the squeamish. It's kind of a horror story, psychological thriller, which are pretty popular right now, ever since, I don't know if many of you probably have, I think it was one of the biggest books. Oh gosh, now I'm drawing a blank on it. Psychological thriller, like Gillian Flynn. There we go. Gillian Flynn. So if you like psychological thrillers like Gillian Flynn, and she was huge, this is probably kind of right up your alley. So it's called Safe by S.K. Barnett. And the main character is a young girl who was kidnapped when she was, I believe, 6 years old. And 12 years later, after her family has been looking for her and trying to find her over the years, she shows back up. And so she's 18, and they're so glad to have her back, her mom and dad and her brother. But what they don't know is, why was she let go? What happened? What's the story behind this? Are they all safe? And so it's kind of a creepy, is there something going on inside their daughter's head? What's going on? Kind of creepy, thrillery type. If you like that kind of book, this might be a good one for you to pick up. Safe by S.K. Barnett. The next book I am going to talk about is The Lightness by Emily Temple. And this is kind of like a coming of age book. But it's also a kind of, it has a very millennial feel to me, with quirkiness and characters that are very dynamic and strange. So the main character in this book, she's telling a perspective of her life from a long time ago. Her father has run away, and she feels abandoned, and so she wants to go and find him. And she's heard that he's at a meditation camp. So she decides to enroll herself in this meditation camp. But it's kind of like a cool camp for bad girls. So she's not really, everybody else doesn't really want to be there, but she wants to, because she wants to find out what happened to her father. And so she joins in on this group, and it's like a small study group, and they work with, I believe, the gardener, and he helps them to like try to figure out how to achieve true levitation. And so it's this weird, quirky book that has gotten really rave reviews. So if you're looking for something a little bit different and you like a little oddness, this might be a good book for you. So this next one, Two Truths and a Lie by Meg Mitchell-Moore. It kind of has a similar feel to a lot of the Leanne Moriarty books, where people are always gossiping, you know, that kind of gossipy women book with, and like something tragic or weird happens. So this woman, she has a daughter and they've decided to leave everything and go move to a different area. And so they move to this new community to start fresh and leave all their troubles behind. And the mom becomes part of this local women's group, the gossipy moms who, if you're in the group, you're in, and if you're not, you are not. And they talk about everybody, and if you want to know anything about the town, this is where you go. While the main character thinks she can leave behind her past, unfortunately, this group may not let her do that. And so this is one of those kind of like, what is her past? Why is she trying to leave it behind? And you know, you may or may not like the women that she's become friends with, but you may have an experience like it as well. So it may be true to life. If you're looking for something a little bit gossipy and probably current, you know, contemporary, this is kind of the book for you. A Burning by Megha Majumdar. So this takes place in India, and it's kind of like a cultural explosion for those who like to learn about new things. It's also another Read with Jenna book. This one got huge reviews, and highly recommended by a lot of different booksellers and people. The main character, she is at a train platform, and she sees an accident happen, and she doesn't think that the police have done enough to help with the accident. And so she decides that she's going to go on social media and complain. And while we do this in the United States, and it's okay to complain about stuff, no repercussions. You may get a little bit of flack from some of your friends for what you say, but you're not going to get what happens to this poor woman. She ends up getting beaten up by the police and taken into prison as a terrorist. Couldn't find that word for a second. And so she doesn't know what she's going to do. She doesn't really have very many friends. She's an English, she speaks English and gives like help to people to learn English. She's a tutor. And so the only two people she really knows that would stand up for her are like a gym teacher and a woman that she's trying to teach English to. And both of them have problems in their own lives and can't get out of their own heads to help her. And so what happens to this poor person in prison? What happens? How did their lives with the two people that might be able to help her, you know, how does her life evolve? So it sounded fascinating, also terrifying, because I mean, who doesn't just say things flippantly in casual conversation, and then how that can affect your life for the rest of it. So this could be an interesting perspective for those who want to see how other people live. A Star is Bored by Byron Lane. So as you can tell, this is going to be comedy and is kind of contemporary. So if you're looking for something that is outside of what's going on right now in our society and you want to get a little fun in, this might be a book for you. So the main character is a young man who he is going for the job of his lifetime. He's going to be a personal assistant to a star. And he doesn't know that this is going to be a journey that he takes for the next 3 years. So Kathy, I forget the woman's name, Kathy Kitty, something like that. The name of the character is, she has 2 Ks for her initials. So she's obviously changed her name for stardom, but she's the big flashy star, and he ends up becoming her personal assistant. And what this personal assistant job becomes more to him than just being a personal assistant. They become friends. They become more than that. And what it means to him, you know, how can he move on from here? He wants to become his own star. He wants to be his own. But how does he become that without betraying the person who he has been lifted up by? So if you're looking for something a little cutesy and fun, this is the book for you. Again, for you psychological thriller people, you should try You Again by Debra Jo Immergut. And of course, I probably butchered half of these people's names, but this one here sounded absolutely horrific and fascinating. Psychological thriller. This woman, she is driving in a taxi, and as she gets out, she thinks she sees a woman that looks like her, but when she was 20 years ago, down to the exact clothing that she's wearing, her boots, her dress, everything. And she starts to see this woman all over the place. She like will see her across the street and she's doing something else. And she's like, oh my God, who is this woman? So she starts following her around, and then she interacts with this person. And what happens to her? You know, should she push forward and find out what's actually going on, or should she go be happy with the life that she's already has? Can she be fulfilled by that, or does she have to go and ruin it by possibly ruin it by finding out what this woman has to offer her? So for those who like a little bit of a creepy psychological, maybe a little science fiction-y spin to things, not quite sure, I haven't read it yet, but it sounds super interesting and creepy. If you like that kind of book, this is for you. I'm going to stop on this last one here. This is The Yellow House. We're doing a book discussion in August on it by Sarah M. Broom. And this book is about the, oh my goodness, the Hurricane Katrina. And it's a little bit about that, but it's really this woman's memoir of when she grew up in New Orleans East. And Sarah is the child of Ivory May, and their family, they have 12 kids in the family. And the Yellow House, as Sarah likes to say, is the 13th and most unruly child of the family. So they live in this house, and it's just over the years, it's like falling apart, and they're having trouble keeping up with it. And so this is the story of the house, but it's also the story of how Sarah lives beyond the house, and how that's challenging after Katrina and what her life turns out to be. I love this book, found it very interesting on Black Lives Matter and learning about how different races have challenges that are different from each other. And in New Orleans, especially with the mental health issues and how things were not especially good for people of color. I found this a very eye-opening book. And if you're interested in learning about Black lives in the United States, I think this is a really good way to kind of soft enter into that. So I highly recommend this. This is one of my favorite books I've read recently. Lastly, don't forget about our Reader's Discovery tools. There is a ton of stuff here that you can use, and I highly recommend our book lists. We do a lot of time, spend time putting those together. If you are looking for something to read and you have your last book that you've read, you can send us an email at webster.reference@libraryweb.org. And we'll give you 5 suggestions. That's your next 5 reads. Totally awesome. Something else that you may not know, we have free digital access to BookPage available right now because of the time that we're in. We have our new books listed on our website. I know I'm hopping around here, sorry. And we have Kindle Fires that you can borrow to check out at the library, and they're preloaded with tons of great new books. Don't forget to sign up for summer reading. I think There's a lot of great services here. Check out our website at websterlibrary.org and find out more. Or stop in the library and ask a question. We're happy to help. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sitting through this presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you need anything else, let me know.